Is this bye-bye TikTok? It could go dark forever next week. The twisted tale that got us here you may not believe. That story and more on this month's Random Research and Ramblings of a Dog. Welcome to Tasper's Tour Bus.
Hi, I'm Tasper, your tour guide on this Fursuit Friday the 13th edition, unless you happen to be watching on some other day. A total US blackout for the TikTok platform is only days away, and the insane plot-twisting story of how we got to this point, well, it's a tale worth telling because it sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood script. But hold on to your seats, because this story is real, and to follow along, you'll have to listen closely. The twists and turns are really too strange to believe. TikTok's turmoil, well, it isn't new. It started in 2020. That's when security concerns first surfaced about the information being collected by the rapidly growing number of TikTok users in the US by the Beijing-based company ByteDance. This would lead to an executive order by President Donald Trump in August of 2020 that essentially required ByteDance to sell off its portion of the platform or face a total US ban. But only 1 month later, and this is where we need the Tasper Twistometer, that executive order was actually blocked by a court injunction. This creates the story's first twist. 2 months later, in November, President Trump would lose his re-election bid to Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden, and once inaugurated, Biden would actually reverse Trump's executive order, effectively removing any threat of a U.S. ban, creating our second twist to this story. But wait, because here comes twist number 3. In 2024, still during Biden's presidency, the Congress passed a bill that required essentially the same thing that Trump's executive order did. President Joe Biden then signed that bill into law, and so now his administration has called for a TikTok ban, and we get our third twist. Did you follow that? Trump bans it, Biden then unbans it, but then he signs a law that calls for a ban again. Okay, can it get any more crazy? This is politics. Of course it can. President Biden, who somehow becomes Kamala Harris by Election Day, loses the election to none other than Donald Trump, making him president yet again, and who will in turn create a twist number 4 by extending the deadline on the TikTok ban bill, the bill that essentially mirrors his 2020 executive order that started this whole confusing mess. So now Trump has essentially stopped this TikTok ban, at least temporarily. But the Trump extensions are set to expire on the 19th of this month. What will happen? Well, TikTok went dark once before, and it likely will again. While this twisty, confusing tale sounds like a 5-year-long joke with a terrible punchline, one thing does seem clear. The two parties that drive policy in Washington, D.C., and almost never agree on anything, both appear to be very concerned that the Chinese government may have secret access to your fursuit dancing routine and chicken recipes. Furality, the popular virtual reality furry convention, proved that they can provide a truly realistic con experience for its attendees by crashing the VR chat service this past weekend. For several hours, users were dropped into solitary confinement room that basically explained services were down, where they could pretend that they were waiting for an elevator or standing in a registration line. According to Furality, the issue was actually attributed to an uplink service provider outage. A similar issue caused login problems for the popular virtual event last year. Anthicon attendees are peeved over parade policy posting, plus dumb human things. That's when our tour continues.
Next month on Tasper's Tour Bus, Anthrocon 2025 is in the books. Did it hit the dreaded registration cap? We'll look at the numbers, social media, and the history of this convention, along with some vintage video from 2001. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the tour. That's next month on Tasper's Tour Bus.
Anthicon released new requirements to participate in its annual fursuit parade last week, and many furries are furious, taking to places like Twitter, now X, and other social media platforms to voice their grievances. Upcoming changes for the parade were first announced last year, but lacked any real specifics. Well, those details dropped on their website last Wednesday, and include, among other things, the need to go in person to get pre-approved for the parade, and a complete ban on any type of skin being shown by those in it. Wearing a fursuit partial that features uncovered human arms or legs, often referred to as poodling, has become very popular over the past decade, and many furries were quick to defend it. with posts like this. Anti-poodling ideals are one of the stupidest things to come to furry. I'm a furry, not a mascot. Poodling is super fire and awesome, and more people should do it, I think. And yeah, sick. I guess I'll miss my Favorites Con parade because I'm banned now. Anthrocon, change your rules. While many expressed disappointment because they simply do not have a full suit, some on social media pointed out, a partial isn't disqualifying you from being in the parade. It's just the showing skin part. Which is indeed what the new policy states. Still, that doesn't keep some from saying that this year's parade should just be outright boycotted. Anthrocon acknowledged that they knew that these policy changes, wouldn't be well received by many. But with the parade having nearly 3,400 participants last year, the organizers feel they have little choice but to enforce some type of limit. Full details about the 2025 parade changes can be found on the anthrocon.org website. You'll find a link in the video description below. I want to take a moment here to do an editorial note. I've seen a lot of ramblings online about boycotting the parade or having their own poodling parade. I understand that some are upset. Anthrocon understood that people would be upset. Before you lash out in drastic ways, please, pretty please, I ask that you don't. This convention, any furry convention, is only able to get this large because of the decency and respect that we've shown for each other. There are some conventions that are gone now because the staff or participants, they lacked exactly that. We are a community that loves to go on Blue Sky, X, Facebook, and everywhere else to preach about being open-minded, accepting diversity, and many of us are celebrating Gay Pride Month right now. So, love him or hate him, please show Dr. Samuel Conway and the amazing staff who works countless hours helping him the decency and respect that they deserve. Be open-minded, and understand that these are not changes that they wanted to do. If it was, they could have made this change in the year 2000. He was, after all, the convention chair even then. For people behind this convention, this isn't just like a single weekend of fun. It continues weeks after, starts months before, and in some capacity is really part of their lives, every day of the year. If you dread going to the motor vehicle office to renew your driver's license, imagine the paperwork and the red tape required to shut down the city streets of Pittsburgh to have an animal costume parade and block party. I can only imagine that takes more than just one form. We are only able to do that because of the respect we've shown the city of Pittsburgh and the respect we've shown the people, running this convention. I can't imagine how difficult it must be to coordinate with local officials to actually shut those streets down, or maybe even request Pittsburgh's fine police department to maybe patrol a little bit more during that weekend and make sure that none of our wonderful community is in harm's way. We go to these cities usually knowing nothing about the neighborhoods we're walking into, and we just, hope we'll be safe. Well, it doesn't always work that way. And I don't know Uncle Kage personally, though I have met him several times, but in all those encounters, I'm sure I've overlooked the opportunity just to say thank you for stepping into shoes that mostly are as a thankless job and being the con chair for this 26 years now, all while somehow finding a way to balance your career, your life, and I'm sure everything else the guy has to do. So, to be honest, it's a job I would never want, and I suspect it's a job that's gotten much larger than he could have ever expected it would have been when he took it over in 1999. So while he'll likely never see this, thank you. And please, if you own a partial and you want to be at the parade, just cover your skin and get the pre-authorization. That's really all they're asking for. Oh, and if you ever do see this, Uncle Kage, I'd love to have a chat with you here, if you're crazy enough to accept it. I've heard you might have a few stories to tell, and the 2 people that watch my videos, they might like to hear them. Dumb human things. That's in a moment.
Don't miss your monthly nerdy dog fix. Subscribe and hit that bell. Take a tour with Tasper once a month. That's all we ask. If you're enjoying the show, please hit that like button. It really helps others find us and means so much.
Have you ever wanted to smell like pepperoni pizza without smearing it all over yourself? Well, Domino's Pizza seemed to think so. As a Valentine's Day promotion, the pizza chain offered their own pizza perfume for their UK and Ireland customers this past February. 65 lucky winners were randomly selected from a contest entry, and each one received their own personal bottle of Eau de Passion, or what I'd like to call, ooh, you smell like pizza. But if pepperoni perfume isn't your cup of tea, well, how about some finger-licking good toothpaste? Yeah, that's right. An unusual partnership between High Smile and Kentucky Fried Chicken produced this little nugget back in April. Available for a limited time, and probably for good reason, humans can brush their lovely molars and bicuspids clean with a toothpaste that's been inspired by the Colonel's famous 11 herbs and spices, and then proceed to go to bed with that extra crispy chicken craving. But before you rush out to get this one, well, you're too late. The product has already sold out. Finally, in the WTF category from Florida, because there always has to be at least one story from there, Sarasota residents have been getting reportedly attacked by nesting hawks. WFLA-TV reporter Jeff Patterson went to investigate the story of a woman, her husband, and her son, who have all become victims of the vicious birds nesting outside their business, noting that her husband was repeatedly attacked while taking out the trash. You can see the full report and video by following the link in the description below. Well, that's today's tour. Thank you for coming along. Until next month, I'm Tasper, just looking for answers.